Hey there, Boozmeisters, and welcome back to the Peach Pod After Dark. I am Jeff. Very hostile, my dear. Very hostile. And joining me on the other end of the internet is my host.
I'm Leslie, and I never get high.
So I don't, unless you just watched this movie, I don't think there's any way you hear those things and go, wow, those are the iconic things from this movie. So I don't think many people that are listening have seen this movie. That's going to be my guess.
Sadly, no.
I hadn't seen it, although I'd heard about it. So This week we are doing the 1969, I don't know, drama, comedy-ish,
dramedy,
sex film, new age treatise, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. And the Aaron Spelling connection on this one is 3 of the 4 of those title characters were connected to Aaron Spelling. Robert Culp did The Love Boat, Natalie Wood did an episode of Heart to Heart, and Dyan Cannon appears as herself in an episode of 90210 that at this point Leslie has not seen yet. So,
nope.
And I saw that on IMDb and I went, I remember exactly when Dyan Cannon was on the show.
Oh dear.
So it's in there. So deep spelling connections all throughout Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. But the reason we chose it is because it pairs nicely, like a wine and a cheese, with season 1, episode 11, BYOB, because Jim and Cindy are accosted by Bob and Trudy. And their whole storyline is about whether they're going to get into some swinging action.
Hi, Cindy.
Big Jimbo. It's Bob and Trudy. It was a while ago we watched that one.
The scariest swingers you will ever meet.
Yeah, very insistent. So we figured it was a good idea to watch this movie that either one of us had only heard of, never seen. Yeah. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. And it's about 2 couples, one of whom, Bob and Carol, go to a Essalon-like retreat, like in Big Sur. And they do like a very intensive 24-hour, I can't remember what the guy calls it, but like it's a therapy session where they're supposed to like just be there together for 24 hours straight, make eye contact with each other, just feel, talk, whatever, experience. And over the course of that 24 hours, Bob and Carol break down some things and they come out feeling like they really want to be honest about their feelings at all times with everybody.
Yeah. You have no choice but to be honest with them, around them. You have no choice but to hear their honesty. Yeah. And of course, right as we start, I need to burp, but I can't do it. No, I can't. I'm not good at it. Anyway.
You're not good at burping?
No.
We might not be able to cut this out. I don't understand. What does that mean? You're not good at burping?
I don't know. I can't force that out.
I did not know burping was a skill, but I'm sorry to hear that you're deficient.
Like many things, I have repressed.
That's not a thing I expected to hear said today.
There you go. It won't be the weirdest thing we talk about, but
no, not. But if I'm being honest in my feelings.
Yeah. What was that look? Anyway, so yeah, that was probably issue number 1 I had. And I didn't have a lot of issues with this film, but maybe this was
sharing.
No, I don't mind sharing, but it's when people force it on you. And that is definitely what Bob and Carol were doing, because like anytime you take a new agey class or you discover a new way of thinking, you think it is the only way now. And
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
want to bring everyone into it.
Hmm.
I have been to something like this, and it's not like I came out of it immediately like drunk on the Kool-Aid, but it was an interesting new way of looking at life. I wanted to share it with other people. I've since changed my mind on it, but yeah. So all that to say, their honesty was a lot, and I felt so awful for the waiter that they kept berating.
Poor waiter.
Because the
Yeah.
thing is, you can only be so honest with power dynamics involved,
Right. Yeah.
and
He just has to sit there and listen to you be honest.
in a day and age now where people think that oversharing is cool, I am I'm currently trying to find a polite way to tell people I appreciate that you feel that you can trust me. However, I don't want to know that.
Right.
Like
Yeah, that's information I don't want to carry.
upsetting shit. Like this is not something we need to be talking about,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think that that's an interesting thing to me. Like this movie is very much of its time. Um and oh wait, this is a we should probably say what kind of movie this is and if we like those kind of movies.
Yes.
Um so what kind of movie do you think this is?
It's definitely a poly movie, you know?
I, I would think yeah, I would agree. Do we like poly movies? Do we know other poly movies?
We don't know a ton,
No.
because as I learned earlier in reading the article you share with me, which is worth noting on here because I thought it was a good article.
Yeah, I just
Um,
went looking for something that someone might have written about this. Try to contextualize it, and that's one of the first things I found.
yeah, for anyone who's interested, it's a article on Slate by Benjamin Rosenstock, and it's about how this movie was ahead of its time. And the few movies that it listed in there, I've maybe seen one of them.
Hmm.
Uh, the When I say one of the few movies listed being a poly movie, and that one that I've seen was Professor Marston and His Women.
I
Or
saw
his,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I liked it. Uh, it's not amazing, but I liked it. And
What was the one that was listed after that in the article? Because I think I'd seen that too.
let me look. I feel like Take This Waltz was also kind of a poly movie, but
I
it's
have
been
not
so
seen
long
that.
since I've watched it. I don't think I'm entirely correct. Let's
Hmm.
see. So we have Wanderlust, we have Rough Night. Oh, there's The Overnight.
I didn't see that.
I don't see any others listed.
I thought there was something after. Hmm. Um. So I would say sure as a concept.
Exactly.
Um.
Yeah, that's I'm open to these kinds of movies. I would love, more stories about people in either an open relationship. I mean, because it's certainly becoming more commonplace. So, I
But it's
mean,
definitely not. It's not frequently represented in film, and not
certainly not.
mainstream film that I've seen. And if it is, it's usually it's either like a cautionary tale of
Yeah.
like someone's gonna end up stabbed through the eye or some shit. I don't know, or it's like played for yucks.
Yeah, it's treated like a joke. And it took me reading the article to realize maybe some of the direction in this wasn't meant to play it as a joke, but was certainly kind of poking fun at some of this stuff. Like,
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would say it pokes more fun at the idea of perfect, open, honest communication
for sure.
and maybe that type of workshop, and less poking fun at open relationships and ethical non-monogamy, if you will.
Yeah, like I think that I, and this is what I was going to say when right before we went down the having to follow our own process rabbit hole,
Yep.
is that the movie is so much of its time that it does a really good job of capturing that thing you were talking about that you found so unpleasant. Is that how real it is to come out of one of those things pretty open, pretty raw, pretty exposed, and that continues out into the world for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you can be a little preachy about a thing, you know, if you're still walking in the cloud of it. And that, you know, that the preachiness wears off over time, and hopefully you haven't like lost all of your friends in the process from just being just insufferable. But so like I think that after effect of an Essalon thing is what the joke is. I think you're right. The things it's poking fun at are related to that new age ideology, but not to the ideology's foundational core point.
Yeah.
Like it was a really weird way to say that, but like it makes fun of the way people behave after they go on those things, but it doesn't make fun of the things they believe after going on one of those things, which I think is an interesting line that they walk here.
Yeah, and you know, people are always looking for solutions and answers
Right.
in whatever way possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine the people this kind of workshop benefits the most are those who are going into it the most honest with themselves about why they're there. Um, but then you have people too who kind of abuse the point of being there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there were some people in those groups who just, oh, I hear everyone gets all piled up in a cuddle puddle. Like, I'm
Right.
there. You know,
Right.
some of the stuff they were some of the activities they were doing or some of the exercises. I mean, we do those in acting classes.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, just like in this workshop, you know, there are people who come into these acting exercises to abuse it and be like, oh, touch someone, show them how I
Right.
feel. Okay. Like,
Right.
so shit like this anymore can make me pretty nervous. But it's still interesting to watch, and I think I was telling you right before we came on, like, it reminded me so much of the last couple episodes of Mad Men, because this is
Mm-hmm.
exactly the kind of place Don Draper ends up.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's again very much of its time. But like, what year was it when Don Draper bought the world of Coke? I don't remember.
1972, I think.
I thought it. Yeah, I thought it was into the 70s. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and this was before that. This was made in '69, but it's all about that. You know, it's all about that new age spiritualist movement that you know was at the foundation of setting up places like Esalen and you know the work that Ram Dass did and all of these celebrities or the Maharishi who the Beatles went to see. All these new age concepts that were being sort of brought back from the East and explored through like psilocybin and LSD and mushrooms and like all of these like mind awakening drugs. Like that was Esalen, where I don't know if this was filmed there, but it's definitely made to look like Esalen, is in Big Sur and was founded in 1962. So it's like by 1969, it was very much a part of the counterculture for sure. And like this movie was a huge hit. So like it was mainstream culture.
Yeah.
which I think is pretty interesting. And a little bit what the article was pointing out was how like it was ahead of its time in 1969, but it's probably more ahead of its time now
Yeah.
because this movie would not do well. It wouldn't be made and released mainstream. It would, be on a streamer somewhere. But it wouldn't be like the number 10 grossing movie of the year or whatever this was,
Yeah.
and garner Academy Awards. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be pretty surprised.
I'm gobsmacked now because I had the thought of like, oh my God, someone needs to remake this
Right.
into, what we do now, which is basically a mini series. Like, because while I love, well, and maybe even still, I don't know, it could work in any era, really, because much like people of any group or nationality, these people have always existed. There just
Right.
hasn't
Yeah.
been language for it, or there hasn't been like a wave for it. And what I thought was interesting about, I wasn't expecting the workshop they attended to turn into, to kind of become their reasoning for becoming poly, because I didn't think of it
Uh-huh.
as a sex workshop or sex
Hmm.
positivity place, even though in the very beginning we see, a row of tits out.
That's right.
Um, yeah, well,
I was like,
handles.
sign me up for this movie.
I know. I was like, oh, we're both going to enjoy this.
I'm here for the wrong reasons, apparently. God damn it.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like you make a great point about how this would still be ahead of its time today, and there are ways to improve upon the original screenplay, um,
Hmm.
while also still carrying the original message.
I almost worry that if you made it today, like Elliot Gould would be played by Seth Rogen, and
Oh,
it would have that flavor to it that
yeah.
I wouldn't like. It should that would be. I would think it would be. I feel like it would be too jokey.
Well, yeah, like
You know.
you need the most ordinary looking people in
Right.
Hollywood or virtual unknowns,
Right.
um, to do this kind of thing, so
Right.
that it's not played for joke, or that it's not lambasted as, like only sexy people do this. Like,
Right. Right. I mean, although they chose like two of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in Natalie Wood and Dyan Cannon. I mean, holy God.
I know, I thought that was really interesting, and I mean, granted, that just shows. I mean, that's just a great example of Hollywood being Hollywood. Like, the women must be stunners. The
Hmm.
men can look like your next door neighbor.
Right.
No
Yeah.
disrespect to, what is it, Ryan Culp?
Robert Culp.
Robert Culp. No disrespect to Robert Culp or Elliot Gould. You're anywhere else you'd be a 10. Um,
They're just
but
dudes.
they're just dudes.
Yeah. They're just guys, like one of whom quite hairy.
Yes.
Like Elliot Gould has got Jim Walsh hair. I mean,
we
he's not quite Robin Williams, but there's a lot going on there.
we love our hirsute men on this
Yeah.
show, don't we?
Wow. I mean, how can you not? So, like, yeah, but they were totally just normal dudes and happened to be married to like just gorgeous women.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know what else I've seen Natalie Wood in. I just sort of know her as a person who existed, you know?
Okay, let's tie that into like another type of film, like, because I feel similarly. Like, Natalie Wood is, I would say, a big star, and
Hmm.
yet, actually, now that I think about it, I have seen her in a fair amount of movies.
I got to look up what she was in because there's a thing in my head where she gets confused with Audrey Hepburn.
Nah, I mean, maybe to
Just
some
in my
people,
head.
not to me.
No, but that's what happens in my head.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, wait, which one was that?
Rebel Without a
Oh,
Cause, Miracle on
oh,
34th Street, Gypsy. Gypsy's the first thing I saw her in.
oh really?
Yeah, so
Yeah, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff too, I guess.
I like her in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, she's Maria. Right, right, right. Okay.
oh my God, yeah.
Well,
Wow.
it's just she doesn't look like Maria in this movie. You don't look
No.
at her and think I Maria. Like it
I
does.
mean, she doesn't look like anything else that I've seen her in this movie. You know why? Because she's
Yeah,
an adult.
it's true.
She's
Yeah.
finally getting to play an adult.
Hmm. And
Um,
there's something about the turn up of her smile that is like mischievous
yeah,
and adorable, like at the same time.
yeah,
And like that, and there's so much work on the face in this movie. There's so much close-up shots of the face, that you see a lot of it, and
yeah,
you're just like struck by it over and over and over again. I was anyway.
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So, and you know what? I don't think that in explaining this movie we got past like the first 20 minutes.
No.
So, so for anyone who's like, what the fuck are they talking about? Bob goes on a business trip to San Francisco. He sleeps with someone. We never see it. Happens off camera.
Hmm.
He comes home and he tells Carol that he slept with someone. And the scene is totally shot on her face. Like he's telling this story, and what you're watching is her reaction. And she is surprised that she's not surprised, or that she's not jealous,
Yeah,
or that she's not judging of it, and that she's okay with it. And you watch all of that on her face. It's really, I mean, it's really well done. And because she accepts it, they get into this like, wow, let's be open about this. Let's be open about everything. And
yeah.
so she tells Ted and Alice, their good friends, that Bob had an affair. And she was like, isn't it wonderful? And gives them a hug, and they go home for the night.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it freaks the two of them out so much. Like they can't, especially Alice, cannot get over it.
They get into a fight.
They get in a huge fight where poor Ted, he either wants to bawl or go for a walk. Either one he's totally fine with. And
he's
she won't
not
let him
allowed
do
to do
either.
Nope.
And it was, oh, I felt so bad. I was like, Jesus Christ, Alice, let him go for a walk. Like, I wasn't even cheering for him to get laid. I just wanted him to be able to go take a walk.
Oh my God, yeah. And like, I mean, it becomes farcical because she it's like, get my
Yeah.
pills. But then she's out of
Right.
pills.
Yeah, yeah. No, that whole sequence is just a big gag.
Oh
You
my
know?
God. I know.
And it's real over the top for a movie that doesn't have a lot of over the top stuff in it.
Yeah, scenes like that are a big reason why I want this to be a play, because I think it would translate so much better on stage. But
Oh, for sure.
fewer people would have seen it if it was only done on stage. So,
Yeah, right.
but
Yeah.
scenes like that are so much more captivating when you're there, because you can
Mhm.
feel the energy, you're getting it off of other audience members. Because I was watching it by myself and I thought, I know I'm supposed to be laughing, but it's just not tickling me.
Right. Yeah, I didn't laugh during that scene either, because it just didn't tickle my funny bone. But
Yeah.
it was a broadly comedic scene that actually to me felt very tense,
Yeah.
because like Bob's losing his shit, or Ted is losing his shit, and Carol is already gone. Like she lost her shit half an hour ago, and so she's just there.
He's
Like
also
not able to.
stoned, which is like
Right.
a horrible time to be caught up
Yeah.
in a fight. It's like, oh my God, honey, I can't. What do you expect from me right now?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So like they're wigged out by the whole thing, and they can't quite get over it. And but they talk about it, like,
Yeah.
which is a very 1969 thing to do. Just talk about your emotions out in front of God and everybody. And like they talked about it with Bob and Carol, and then Carol had an affair. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Because everybody up to this point is like, sure, Bob, you're a swinger. Like, you're totally fine with it as long as you get to go do what you want. But the minute Carol turns the tables on you, you're going to lose your mind. And he does. But like, he quickly processes it and moves on to, I'm okay with this. And I'm so okay. We're going to go talk to Horst on the bed and bring him a scotch.
Let's have a drink.
A little bit of water.
Let's have a drink.
Yeah.
Buddy, I'm not gonna hit you, man. There's no hitting. This is a non-violent house.
We don't even have like war toys. Like,
we don't even have war toys.
I love how he's like, how his delivery of that whole thing, because he's head leaned against the door, talking through the door, and the delivery of it is like, he's starting to like say this thing about not allowing the kids to have war toys because it's a conscious decision they've made in this house, and there's a reason why, and it's because we're nonviolent. And I can't believe I'm explaining this through a door. This is such a lame example. Why am I talking?
Yeah.
Like, that was all in the way he delivered the line. And it was that part was funny to me. So yeah, that, like, again, that's a bit where they're going over the top with it. But Bob's cool with it. Alice is still not.
No, she goes to therapy. She's so messed up over this.
She's got like a horn dog therapy too. Like, that guy's face. Oh my God.
I was unsettled.
He was very lascivious.
Well, and I couldn't tell if that was just me or if that's how we were supposed to be seeing him, or maybe that's how Alice is seeing every guy looking at her.
Maybe. That's possible. I hadn't considered that. Yeah, that's from Alice's point of view. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably true. That's probably what that scene is, now that I think about it. Because he does look like a total horn, but he's not saying anything that's like that. He's not acting inappropriate, but his face is like he's a wolf just drooling, you know?
Yeah, and when the camera is at maybe a slightly off-center angle of him, like when it's not from her looking right at him, he seems a lot more professional and together. So I wonder if that is supposed to be us as Alice.
I bet it is. And yeah, I bet it is. And it's really smart if that's what they did, because it works.
Yeah.
You know? It makes that scene really interesting in a way that it wasn't before. And she won Best Actress for this.
Did she really?
I'm 90% sure that I saw that today. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe she didn't win. But yeah, Elliot Gould was nominated for actor in a supporting role. Dyan Cannon was actress in a supporting role. It also got cinematography and writing nominations.
I believe it.
So yeah, a movie about new age swingers.
But like, the non-swingers only got nominated.
That's true. That's really funny. Yeah, look what it's like to live with these people. Yeesh.
I mean,
there's an award.
Again, it's Hollywood telling us, we'll give you this art, but we're going to tell you how to really feel and think about it by who we nominate and award.
Right. And you're not talking about Ken. I mean, so those nominations just came out where Ken got nominated and Barbie did not, and it's ridiculous. So that happens just so for people listening, that's when we recorded this.
Yeah. So we're upset. Or I don't know how you feel, but I mean, I know it's all meaningless, but it's
right. Upsetting. I mean, I don't get upset about those awards anymore in ways like I used to be like, it should have been this. This is so much better. Forrest Gump sucks. Pulp Fiction, yes. You know, like I used to be kind of that, although I preferred Shawshank that year.
Oh, hell yeah.
But I used to feel very like animated about that stuff. Now I'm mostly just like, well, that fucking figures. Like it doesn't outrage me. It doesn't surprise me. I just went, yeah, yeah, that sounds about right.
I think I can't wait to get to that point because I don't like getting angry about
Yeah,
this kind of shit. And yet you can't help but take it personally and feel like, once again, you're just telling me how much you hate feminists.
right.
Like,
Yeah, it's a bad look for our guys, the Academy.
it's a bad look for our guys, compounded by the continued fraught political climate that we live in. Like, it's too many layers of a cake that I didn't order.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like most of dinner with Bob and Carol.
Yes.
Yeah,
That poor waiter.
that poor waiter. Um, but then, in the climactic scene of the movie, Alice is like, "You know what we should do is just fuck."
That's what we came here to
And
do.
yeah, we're sharing a suite, aren't we? Like, you know, and Ted had to be talked into it, and took the longest time in the bathroom of anybody in the history of trying to go to an orgy. I
Yep.
mean, one assumes, my lord, he was in there for a long time.
I know. I mean, kept holding his pants halfway up, half down, like.
Yeah, and like he combed his hair, and mouth spray. He gargled mouthwash. Like, I mean, I think he put deodorant on.
He
Like, and
did.
meanwhile, the other three people are in the bed.
Already making out,
Yeah,
having a good time, and then they are just waiting like the three little kittens in
they're
bed.
sitting there. They're sitting there just like Harry, Gary, Larry, Barry, and Nathan Jr. Like it's the Arizona Quints. It's how they're sitting there. She had more than she could handle.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what the Raising Arizona thing is a reference to. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. That would be really funny and really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have the shortest on film orgy. Did they?
They didn't have an orgy.
But did they? The way that it was cut, I couldn't tell if they got started and then all felt kind of awkward about it and stopped, or if they got started, all felt kind of awkward about it, but cut to after completion.
Huh.
So like I think that they did,
Interesting.
because when they left, the way that it was kind of hard to tell, because they leave the room and they're walking, each couple hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
and Bob and Carol in front of Ted and Alice, and you're just watching their faces
Yeah.
as they're walking down the hall, and they start out, all four of them, looking like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like either like we all dodged a bullet, or I can't believe we did that. That now we're processing what that means.
Yeah.
And then as they continue to walk out the hotel, first Bob and Carol smile
Yeah.
and like are sinking into sort of the joy they're feeling from that encounter. And then they go outside in a long line of couples of all nationalities, including like the Indian headdress guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were making a point about how this is everybody. I think that the
world
rat
needs
symbolized
love.
obviousness.
Yeah.
And then they're looking each other in the face, and Ted and Alice are also in the moment again and happy. They've processed it and they've come to this place. So I think that they did. And I think the whole thing was us watching them accept that they did.
Interesting.
And then the music that's playing You know, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's the only thing that there's just too little of. While everyone, all those couples look at each other in the face and are together. And,
Yeah.
you know, like that's what happens in the movie. And to me, that's the whole thing. The whole thing is, and I don't think they're hiding it, is like, this is not weird.
Yeah.
You know, like coming out of these retreats and acting as goofy as people can act is weird.
Yeah.
But that people are choosing to live their lives this way is not weird. They're not being made fun of. They're not being ridiculed. It's not being shown as like, look at this horrible thing that happens if you live in it and have an open relationship.
Yeah.
It's normalizing, and it's saying it's everybody.
That's so interesting because, you know, when I watched the ending, you know, I had my initial moment of like, huh, I don't know what to take from this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now 24 hours later, I like I like your interpretation. I also don't mind. I also like the idea of maybe they didn't, but there's the
Okay.
possibility that they still might.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because the way I saw it was, you know, they're making out. There's this weird moment where the camera and Bob make eye contact with each other,
Uh huh.
and I haven't quite decided what that means, but I feel like I feel like they all realized this is too weird for right now because even though Ted eventually joined them, it was still kind of like a, you know, listen, if consent's not an enthusiastic yes, it's not consent.
Right.
And his wasn't really an enthusiastic yes.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt like they all felt that and acknowledged
Mm-hmm.
it and then decided to go on. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, there's plenty, if anything, it can be more awkward sometimes after not doing it because an, there was an almost, and then, oh, you said
Right.
no, something's wrong.
Right. Right. I said it, and now it's just out there. Oh no, it's out there. Call the police. It's out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No. Yeah. There's a thing hanging in the air, and so I think that it almost doesn't matter if they did or not,
Yeah.
because what happens afterwards is still them processing the moment.
And normalizing it.
Yeah,
They're all still
and
together.
whether they did or didn't, they're still friends. You know, so whatever choice they made that we're left to interpret, you know, unless everyone in the world is like, it's so obvious what is wrong with you.
You're right.
Um, but they're, I think the point is that whatever they chose is fine,
Yes.
because what we really need is just more love. That's it. We
Yeah.
don't need, like, whatever other things you want to put on it, we don't need. We just need the love part. And that's why there's the guy in the Indian headdress and every, you know, make and model of human being possible out there. And, you know,
And to quote
so
Bob and Carol, it's beautiful.
it's beautiful.
It's
You know how
beautiful.
many times, did you notice how many times they say something as hostile?
The hostile point.
They said it a lot, like either a person um, or an action is described as hostile in this movie a
Yeah,
lot.
a lot.
And I was like, wow, that's so weird for a movie that's, although maybe not, like, this movie is about expressing your feelings and that being okay at its core. Like, that's what they take from Essalon, you know,
Yeah.
is, and which is never said that that's what it is, but that's what it is.
I mean, there are popular words in all new age philosophies. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, we hear boundaries much more than we ever
Yeah,
have before.
sure.
People, you know, we hear anxiety. Um
Trigger.
Trigger. Yeah, exactly. You know, all of these words were words before, but they
Mhm.
have a more loaded connotation now. And I
Right.
think hostile is probably one of those words they heard in the workshop, so now it's one that they use.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
And it's
Yeah.
a loaded term. And again, kind of I feel kind of used as a weapon at times,
Yeah.
much
Sure.
like, you know, my boundaries are not being respected right now, you know.
Right. I wonder. I'm looking it up because I had the quotes pulled up. But um, first we'll have an orgy, then we'll go see Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
That's
Love
funny.
that line.
Yeah.
I,
Um,
I loved insight.
all right. I'm going to type the word hostile in here. All right. Oh, it only comes up in this one. They only quoted it one time uh, in like the IMDb quotes.
Mm,
But it is. It's. I'd like to maybe watch the beginning. I was hoping that it had some quotes from like that session
yeah,
where if somebody called him, maybe did they call him hostile?
I think they did.
That might have been it. So someone called him hostile, said they thought he was acting hostile, and then that word just kept getting used the entire movie.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, so do we like new age movies? Do we like spiritual awakening movies? Because that's also what this is on top of being an orgy movie.
Probably not. I
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not a particularly spiritual person in my
Mm-hmm.
30s or, you know, adult life. I'm yeah, yeah, it's not a genre I'm interested in.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably some that I would be like, oh yeah, that's a really interesting movie. Or it like I just pulled up some random website. I don't even know what this is, but they listed Tron.
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
yeah, yeah, because it is. It's like it's not spiritual so much as technological, but that's there too.
I feel like
Um,
Field of Dreams is spiritual.
it is. Lucy, which I didn't really like, but
I didn't see it.
Truman Show.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay.
Um, The Matrix.
Oh, that is good. Yeah, both of those are
Um,
good.
yeah. Peaceful Warrior, which I don't know. The Island, which I don't know. Groundhog Day.
Oh, nice.
I
So
mean, that's
the genre I say that I'm not really interested in is the one that I've
right.
seen
The most of that we've talked about so far. Yeah.
outside of
And
dance movies.
right, right. Um, yeah, I like ideas. I'm sorry. I like movies that poke at the idea of spirituality
Yeah.
and and especially if it's like a science fiction-y kind of thing, um, more than a fantasy kind of thing. Like I think that's interesting to use science fiction stories to poke at spirituality and explore the ideas behind it. And so I do like things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I liked this quite a bit.
I like it. I've liked it more in thinking about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cuz again, as I watched it and as I was texting you, it's not that I didn't like it, it's just that there were things for me that weren't clicking or that I didn't care for.
Mm-hmm.
But now upon like thinking about it more and also reading the article, I have a more favorable, excuse me, memory of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd watch this again.
And I think it very much fits its time, you
Yes.
know? So is this so you know if we're going to talk EST, which we do every week, um,
Yeah.
est is also is a kind of spiritualogical practice, teaching, uh, organizing concept that's very related to the stuff that they would do at Essalon. So it's called EST or est.
Nice.
So we're doing our ests. Um, I is this the most? I I can't think of another example of a movie that is more ahead of its time 50 years after it was made than it was ahead of its time when it was made. So this has to be the EST of that. You know?
Yeah.
It's like if, although in some ways the original Star Trek was ahead of its time in 1964,
Yeah.
but the ideas in it in some ways feel even more progressive today than they did then.
Oh yeah.
And so that might be true of a lot of science fiction from the 1960s.
Yeah, I think so. I my ESTs are kind of silly. Cuz I was thinking of mod the whole time, the delightful 60s slang that I like, which is just short term for modern. And I was like, I think this is the modest
It's
film.
pretty mod.
It's so mod, and it goes hand in hand with your thinking it's the most ahead of its time.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. And I pulled up Ebert's review, and I didn't get very far into it before I had to stop and run around and do the rest of life. But I think he gave it 4 stars. Like he liked it quite a bit. Now I also realized at this point that it was on Ebert.com, which means it may be some archival thing that somebody else on his site has written on the site. I didn't check the byline, so I may not be. But that it was very different in that it took the subject matter seriously, and if it moralized at all, it moralized on the side of this is fine.
Yeah.
And it said it because you had mentioned wanting to talk about this earlier, but we talked about the music at the end of the movie. But the music at the beginning of the movie, over the shots of them driving up the road to the retreat, and then all the naked ladies at the retreat, and the old dudes in the hot tubs with their newspapers or magazines or whatever, was, and I don't know the name of the song. It's just Hallelujah all the time. Is that what's the name of the song?
It's from Handel's Messiah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's sung at Christmas for a reason, you know?
Right.
It's supposed to be the angels rejoicing at Jesus's birth. So I think it's quite fitting for the beginning of I mean, it's a very interesting choice, and it's very catching to be at the beginning of a film. And once you see where they're headed and realize where they are, like nude women aside, it's clearly going to be a place of rebirth, of awakenings. So it's telling us how they're going to come out of it before we see them go through it.
Yeah. I tell you what it made me think, though, was that it was setting this version of spirituality in the hands of spirituality that we know you accept already. So it's normalizing everything you're about to see by giving it a church song that you sing at Christmas over this place right before they do that intense 24-hour hugging and staring therapy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I thought that was a very interesting song choice for the beginning of this movie. It was certainly very considered. You know, everything that they did in this movie was done very much on purpose.
Yeah.
And it was directed by Paul Mazursky. It was his first movie.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah. I mean, he's a name I've heard of. Oh, he directed Down and Out in Beverly Hills, Moon Over Parador. He directed these movies in the mid 80s that I heard of. I was never able to watch. Scenes from a Mall, Again, things I've heard of, but nothing I've seen.
I've never heard of these.
I've seen Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Oh, he also did Moscow on the Hudson with Robin Williams, where he plays like the Russian dude or whatever. Again, never saw it. I just know it exists.
Was blissfully unaware.
Yeah. Well, here you are, knowing your Mazursky now.
Yeah. That'll come in handy for a trivia night.
Hell yeah. You can just bring it. Bring that funk.
What? So, okay, I'm going to jump to, if you're ready, do you think this was the best movie of 1969?
That's a good question.
What else came out that year?
Oh, well, I mean, it's an interesting year for things that were in the theaters. So,
For life.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Yep. I do too. Anne of 1,000 Days, which I have not seen or heard of. Hello, Dolly. Yep. A movie called Z, which I have not seen.
Nope.
Or heard of. Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, I have not seen that one.
That movie won Best Picture that year. Yes. And I hated that movie.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like you keep waiting for something to happen and then the movie's over. Like, I watched it in high school with one of my best friends, and because we had heard like, oh, this won Best Picture, and like we were just in that phase where you're just watching everything that's like supposed to be good. And that phase for me lasted for quite a while. But we watched Midnight Cowboy, and at the end of it, we were both just like, what the fuck was that? It was so boring. And so we created the Midnight Cowboy handshake. Nice. Which is you try really hard to shake hands, and then you give up and go away. So I think this movie was much better than the movie that actually won Best Picture that year. I'm not a Midnight Cowboy guy. But you also have things like The Wild Bunch, and They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And
ooh, that has a musical based off of it.
Does it?
It does. It's called Steel Pier.
Okay. And Alice's Restaurant, which is a wonderful Thanksgiving Day song, but I'm not sure it's a good movie.
Okay.
Let's see. But so Midnight Cowboy, I don't even know. Oh, but also True Grit came out that year.
Oh, the original.
Yeah. Yeah. So John Wayne was nominated for Best Actor, as was Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman for Midnight Cowboy. And Midnight Cowboy is like Jon Voight. And again, anything happens in this movie, motherfucker. But Jon Voight like comes to New York and becomes a male prostitute. And
what?
Yeah. And I'm telling you this, and it's still the most boring thing I've ever seen. And then Dustin Hoffman gets really sick, and then they get on a bus. I'm walking here, like that's it. That's the whole fucking movie. I'm walking here, and he's not walking; he's in a wheelchair.
Oh no!
Because he's very sick by this point in the movie. I had no idea, but it is. So 1969 with that movie, which is about like a male prostitute, and this movie, which is about polygamy, is a very weird sexual year in films. And Easy Rider comes out this year too, because Jack Nicholson is nominated. So there's a lot of things in 1969 that are pretty good and pretty interesting. Many of them better than one Best Picture.
You know, Hello, Dolly, you could argue in its own way, is kind of a horny musical. Going back to our very first episode.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The horniest musical of all time, Grease 2.
I mean, these boys won't come home until they've kissed a girl. Come on.
Yeah. We know what you're talking about. You're not fooling anybody, Dyan Cannon. We know what you want. Um, yeah, Goldie Hawn won best actress in a supporting role that year.
Oh, for what?
Cactus Flower, which is not something I've seen.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, me either. God, I don't know what I think the best movie of the year is based on the things that I'm seeing on the that they got nominated, because none of them I love. I liked this, but so maybe.
I feel like if you want to go by what the best picture should be, which is something that is timeless while also of its time,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a good pick.
Yeah.
However, I fucking love Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
That's what it is. You know what? When I was saying that, I'd forgotten that Butch and Sundance was this year, because that's the answer.
Like, I love that film. I can't remember what age I was when I watched it, but I know I was maybe somewhere in the teens, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting to feel so heartbroken at the
Mm-hmm.
end of it.
Yeah.
Like, we're watching it and getting closer and closer to the end. I'm like, I thought this was a comedy.
Right. Yeah. It's a buddy comedy till it ain't no more.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Next time you want to go to Bolivia, count me out.
Yeah. Next time you say let's go someplace like Bolivia, let's go someplace like Bolivia. Yeah. Yeah, next time. Yeah. I mean, even up to the end, it's a buddy cop movie, but I'm not going to tell you how it ends, boys and girls, but it is a 50-plus-year-old movie. So I'm not sure you can spoil Butch and Sundance at this point.
No.
But it does give rise to one of my favorite moments in The West Wing.
Oh?
Yeah, did you ever watch West Wing?
I didn't.
Oh, it's so good.
I heard good things.
They're about to face an enormous scandal, and it's getting ready to break in the news like the next day, and Josh and Toby are like super worked up about something, like really something very serious. That's all related to this, but at the very end, CJ just starts laughing at them, and she's like, "You two are like Butch and Sundance. You're standing on the cliff talking about how you can't swim.
Yeah.
The fall's gonna kill you." Like, you're focused on the wrong shit, guys.
Ah, shit.
Yeah. Butch and Sundance is great.
Who are those guys?
But I really did enjoy this movie.
I did too.
I was happy I enjoyed it. It was like the least overtly sexual movie about polygamy that I could imagine seeing. Because, like, with the exception of like the airplane dream sequence that Ted has, which is really funny, and the naked ladies kneeling at the beginning of the movie, there's not really any nudity in this movie. All the sex takes place off camera.
Yeah.
It's just told about and reacted to.
Yeah, the people paid the least are the ones who had to take off the most clothes.
That's true. But you know what? It's interesting that, like, I think that's very much on purpose that all of the sex took place off camera, because the point isn't the sex. The point is the reactions to the sex.
Yeah, how people talk about sex.
Yeah. And process it. And, like, it's a really interesting movie.
Yeah. Again, why they say communication is key. It's not just a cliche. It's very much true.
Yeah. So did we do it?
I think we did it.
All right, you guys. Once again, we have proved my theory that everything comes back to Aaron Spelling. So, every time we watch one, I'm like, even this.
Even this.
Even this thing that is so different than the thing we did last week, than the thing we did the week before. All right. Well, so until next week, Booze Meisters.
Cheers.
Cheers.